increases in utilization that is driven by increase in cases and will be the basis for classification to higher alert levels.
Yung pong granular lockdown, last year ginagawa na po yun. It comes from the word grain, grano, butil. No, ang ginagawa po ng mga mayors, meron pong protocol yan. Kung isang bahay na infected, you have to isolate that household. Kung dalawang bahay, dalawang household. Kung condominium, isang kwarto, dalawang kwarto, it could be one floor. No? Wag po tayo mali dito. Itong alert level ay ibang klase ito. Ito yung tinetake as a whole ang buong city.
We are not in a position where we can relax and experience a further worsening of this transmission level.
Metro Manila will experience adjusted lockdown restrictions very soon with a few activities allowed, especially for fully vaccinated residents. How will this new quarantine levels help decrease COVID transmission? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this Tuesday edition of The Chiefs. I'm Ed Lingao. And joining us in a while will be Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star and Luchi Cruz Valdez of News 5. But we begin tonight with Dr. Maria Consorcia Conky Lim Quizon of the COVID-19 Interim Night Tag. Good evening, Doc Conky. Thank you for joining us and welcome back to The Chiefs.
Good evening, Ed, and good evening to all the viewers.
Doc Conky, well, medyo nalilito kasi ibang tao dun sa sa details ng new setup. Well, I won't be asking you about the new details, but I'll be asking you a general perspective of this new system. Kasi in our discussions, it appears na ang mangyayari sa Metro Manila ay magluluwag tayo. Except for the granular lockdowns, diba? Kasi in granular lockdowns, talagang lockdown yan. Pero dun sa level 4 ng Metro Manila, magluluwag tayo kasi we will be allowing dine-ins, 10%, and then 30% dun sa outdoors, and so on down the line. My question to you po is this, do you think it's the right time for us to be loosening up restrictions, considering na, ang sabi ng lahat baka tumaas pa this month yung numbers, and of course, we are trying to balance the economy with public health. Your thoughts po, is this the right time for this?
Well, my short answer is no, because as an epidemiologist, nag-average pa tayo ng what? A few thousand less than 20,000 cases per day, hindi pa natin napapababa. So really, now is not yet the time to talk about easing restrictions. From day one, we've been talking about careful balancing of the economy and,
Yes,
and lockdowns. But, para isugal natin yung whatever gains that we have, hindi pa tayo sigurado. We're not even out of the woods. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. And yet we're talking about sayang ang economy. Baka lalo tayong magkagasta o lalo tayong mawalan because we're so in a hurry, thinking only of the immediate economic gains and not the long term.
In particular po kasi we are talking about allowing dine-in na 10%, tapos dining out, outdoors dining na 30%, and then personal care services, so on down the line, and necrological and religious services now to be allowed. So pagluluwag po talaga siya.
Yeah, but I ask you, who puts the bell on the cat? Sino nagbabantay kung 10% now, 20%, 30%? Sino nagbabantay? Sino magsasabi na, o sige, tama na muna yun sa restaurant na yan, lumapas na sa 10%. Who watches? The devil has always been in the implementation. Hindi ba? Doon sa detalye. So, mano man lang pong we are still at war. And I know that the economy is an issue, but let us not waste whatever gains that we have sa pagmamadali natin.
Okay, let me bring in Luchi Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5. Luchi. Nakamute ata si Luchi. Naka-quarantine pa yung audio mo.
Hello, Dr. Conky. Nako, so mukhang kontra kayo. Magagalit sa inyo si presidential spokesperson Harry Roque.
Sino ba naman ako, di ba? I mean, tinanong niyo ako. And in fact, thank you for saying that, Lucy, because I am NITAG. So, ang sinabi ko kanina ay sa abot ng aking kaalaman at opinion bilang epidemiologist.
Yes, no, that's true. Pero okay, sa mga businessmen actually, it makes sense, no? First of all, of course, yung mga ayaw magpabakuna at saka in general, no, we also don't like the idea of mandating vaccines. So may discriminatory factor, kumbaga, dun sa mga alert levels, di ba? Na dapat ang papasok lang, ang makapasok lang sa restaurant, etc.
fully
Yeah,
vaccinated.
di ba? May mga ganong rules. But talagang ang outcry naman from the business sector, especially among MSMEs, is really, please allow us a situation, di ba, where we can get back to some semblance of normal, because questions about how long the COVID will be with us are still unanswered and unresolved. How do you, siguro ang ano nga rito, Doc, is nasaan na ba tayo in terms of the science of discovering exactly how this virus is going to progress, if it will progress further. Kasi we can't even see the light at the end of the tunnel right now. The only thing that's being told us is be vaccinated, protocol, put on mask. Parang wala nagbago after 1.5 years. So epidemiologically, have we progressed in terms of our knowledge of it?
Well, the progress for me is the fact na nakokontrol natin yung mga namamatay. Historically, yung mga nangyaring pandemya dati, inabot ng 4 na taon. Okay? Because ang tingin namin is that uubusin niya talaga kung sino dapat magkakasakit, kung sino dapat mamamatay. The last pandemic, which is yung plague, before the Spanish flu pala, parang 1/3 of the global population ang nagkasakit. And 1/10 of the global population died. Mercifully sa atin, what we have now, we are, kung susundan natin yung 4 years, we are hardly half. Okay? So ang dami nang nagkasakit. But we are nowhere near yung mga number ng mga namamatay because of yung science and technology natin and the wonders of medicine. So if for that alone, pasasalamat na tayo. Kasi unfair yung tanong na, alam na ba natin lahat? Talagang nobody can say. And nobody can say kung paano mag-react and kung paano pa mag-a-action itong terribly misbehaving na virus na to. So we don't know. And we take each day as each day comes. It is what it is.
Well, that's why, the uncertainty is also, well, sabi nga nila, di ba? Either you're gonna die of the COVID or you're gonna die from poverty, from impoverishment because of the situation. Yun nga yung, di ba? Parang, so it's now just a choice of how you're going to die. And yun na nga, so you also wonder, ba't hindi na lang hayaan nga, na parang total may controls pa rin naman. Isn't that a reasonable position? I'm just wondering, I'm not batting for either or. No?
When you say hayaan nating mahawa yung mahahawa, yung gano'n.
Hindi naman, hayaan na lang
saying?
natin na mag-loosen up even if only slightly, like I think these new protocols are doing, right? It's the balancing of the economy and the health, no? So,
well, the issue there, from day one naman, the issue is seeing to it that we don't overwhelm the health system. And you know this. Luchi, nakakapanlo mo yung tili ng ambulansya parut-parito. Parang, and we know na nauubusan ng ICU and so on and so forth, which is the reason why hindi natin hayaan na lang. Kasi merong magagrabe. Merong mga maa-ICU. And then, panunuorin na lang natin sila? Susunugin na lang natin sila? So as much as we can, yun yung pine-prevent natin, yung mabawasan at hindi kumalat ng bonggang-bongga at dumami yung mga maha-hospitalize or yung mamamatay, di ba? And then too, so what do we do? Okay? Bottom line, we are at war. Okay? And I guess the best way that I can put it now is, we are at war, siguro kanya-kanya muna tayo. Kumbaga, what an individual can do at his level, gawin natin. Regardless of whether sabihin, pakawalan na yan o hindi. Kung sabihin, pakawalan, pero sa palagay ko, ako, teka, ba't ako lalabas? Ayoko naman muna lumabas. E di, for my own security, I'm not gonna go out. Regardless of what
Okay.
the government is gonna say.
Let's bring in Ana Marie Pamintuano to Philippine Star. Ami.
Good evening, Doctor.
Hi,
Doctor.
Ami. Good evening.
Hi. Pilot pa lang naman to, mag-uumpisa ng Thursday. At ang sinasabi ng economic team kasi, well, COVID will be around for a long time. Sa tingin nyo, ano ba yung dapat na, we know that Dr. Maricar Limpin asked for a two-week lockdown, no? Yung ECQ. You think that would have been enough? Yung 2 weeks na yon?
Depende kung kasi masyado motherhood statements, Kasi talagang depende kung ano sitwasyon do sa lugar na yon. Kung sa palagay nila, malaki ang problema nila and then walang nagko-contact tracing, walang ibang kumbaga naghihintay ka lang ng number of cases, then 2 weeks won't probably be enough kasi hinihintay mo lang na dumami ng dumami ang nare-report. Okay? But on the other hand, in that particular place or LGU, if you know that you're doing everything humanly possible para noon at hindi lang yung lockdown kundi yung other measures ginagawa mo, then perhaps 2 weeks will be enough.
But are you actually seeing those measures? Wala naman, may lugar ba na mataas ang testing and contact tracing? Can you point to any model LGU?
Speechless.
Yeah,
That says a lot, Doc.
that's answer enough.
Anything I say will be held against me in the rule of court.
Doc,
No, but
sige, Ami, you wanna say something?
No,
Okay.
no, I was gonna say precisely, no? Yun nga rin. Kasi Doc, parang wala rin namang nagbabago. Parang hindi rin nagbubunga. I think yun yung sentimiento ng mga negosyante, no? Na hindi rin naman nagbubunga.
Parang
Sige.
humahaba lang yung quarantine, yung lockdowns, pero and then we'll go back to another lockdown later on. Parang, I
Yes.
suppose ganun ang kanilang feeling.
Oo, palibasa kapag kami mga nagkasakit at problema sa ospital, hindi naman yung mga negosyante magpro-provide ng hospital beds and magbabantay sa mga na-ospital, no?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Tabi-tabi po.
Yes,
Tabi-tabi
yes.
po sa mga
Yes, true,
negosyante.
true.
I'm sorry.
True.
But I understand you, pero yung sinasabi nyo kanina na mamamatay tayo sa gutom. Pakisabi nga sa akin kung meron kayong alam magmula nung March last year na actually namatay sa gutom. Okay? I believe in the resiliency of the Filipino people. And through all of our disasters na talagang lugmok tayo, nakakagawa po ng paraan ang ordinary Filipino people, and it helps a lot na malaking portion ng ating GDP ay nanggagaling doon sa mga workers natin from abroad. Kaya kahit anong mangyari dito sa Pilipinas, may nakakapagpadala ng pera. Okay? So ang ordinaryong tao, may nagagasta. That's what I'm saying. So if you say, mamamatay ang negosyo, sino ang tatamaan ng higit, yung may-ari ng negosyo na not likely magugutom o yung mga nagtatrabaho doon sa negosyong yon. So, parang sa nagtatrabaho para sa negosyo, sabi ko nga, yung resiliency natin na Pilipino, makakagawa ng paraan yan. You know, I will be faulted to, I'm not even saying, I'm far from being an economist. Ito po ay isang napaka-lay person na observasyon sa nangyayari.
Doctor, yung explanation nila kasi, yung easing daw ngayon in this experiment, para naman daw sa fully vaccinated kasi yung hinihingi yun.
Yun nga eh. Yeah.
But does it make sense from a from an infectious disease
From NITAG's point of view as well.
point,
Oo.
does it make sense? Considering how Delta is behaving,
Right,
kahit sa
right.
vaccinated, does it
Right.
make sense?
Right. So, siguro, no, when you get to the restaurant or you get to whatever establishment, okay, pwedeng mahigpit sila, no, yung bakunado lang. But going from point A to point B, yung mga dinaanan mo, yung sinakyan mo, at what? Ayun ang exposure mo. Hindi ba? Hindi lang doon sa restaurant mismo. So, sabi ko nga kanina, the devil is in the implementation and the details. You say 10%. Who sees to it that 10% nga lang yung pinapasok? Or 20%? Or habang naghihintay yung 10% na mas-serve, merong ilang dosenang tao sa labas na na-expose sa mga nagdadaan because hindi pa sila makapasok. So, siguro, theoretically, pwedeng magawa, pero yung operationally, magagawa pa. At saka yung tanong mo sa akin kanina, sa tinatakbo ng infectious disease on the scientific level, if really that will help at all, it won't. Talagang talagang nakikita mo lang diyan is yung makakutulong sa ekonomiya. Pero kung talagang safe sila, I cannot say.
But Doc, as an epidemiologist, what would you have wanted to happen? An extension, I suppose, an extension of the current state for how long, for example?
What I want to say is that let us take care of ourselves on an individual basis. Yun yung sinasabi ko, kahit buksan, kahit okay na, yung ganun. Kung ikaw as an individual, wala ka rin lang overwhelming need para lumabas, utang na loob, wag kang lumabas. That's all I'm saying. Okay? Even if we open it, let's not please go fiesta over it. Because even in countries where there is more than 50% vaccination rate, you know that there are things that are happening. Nagsisearch pa rin sila. Tayo pa kaya na hindi pa gano'n ang ating vaccination rate?
Yes, Doc. But Doc, that's on a personal level. On a policy level, what would you and what would your colleagues have wanted?
I don't know. I don't know
I
on
mean,
the
is there
policy
unanimity?
level.
Is there even unanimity to begin with among epidemiologists and experts?
We haven't really talked about it, but I would hazard a guess that as scientists or on the science side, we would say, kaya ka nahahawak dahil na-expose ka. Eh di, ang control mo wag ka pa-expose. And so therefore, kung possibly that at all, is that magtago muna lahat tayo.
What about kung yung pilot inilipat sa not NCR, yung less risky area? Would that be more? Would that be safer?
In order to make, when you say pilot, because you want it to succeed, right? So in order to make something succeed, you try to control all the factors para successful. Kung kaya nga ilagay mo doon sa kukonti
Then
at
it
hindi
becomes
masyadong
artificial.
congested. Oo. So, posible nga na mag-succeed kasi nandun yung other factors. Kesa yung ipapilot mo doon sa talagang ang dami-daming unseen and uncontrollable factors, di baka nga sumabit ka.
So the former would be an artificial success of a pilot, hindi ba?
That's true. That's true also. But, then you would know na kung artificial yun, kung talagang kinontrol mo lahat, hindi pa rin nag-succeed, magsasucceed pa kaya doon sa totoo.
Sure.
Diba? Yung kinontrol mo na nga lahat Tama ka, fake yun. Or pero if you didn't succeed there, where all external factors would be favorable, how can it really succeed in the real world?
Actually, the question to me is whether you can accurately even assess the system after 2 weeks, no? Parang, is that really a good enough time frame to do it?
Right. Well, there are so many napaka-iffy, no? At saka sabi mo nga kanina, bakit nako-contract trace ba lahat yan? O natetest ba lahat yung ganon-ganon? Sa totoo lang, hindi nga siguro hindi talaga, no? Not really. But I would like to believe that we're not really missing a lot. Alam nyo bakit? kahit na-miss natin yung mga posibleng positive, hindi natin mamimiss yung mga magpupunta sa ospital. Okay? So, alam natin na 5% yung posibleng ma-ospital at magrabe. So, kung may 5 doon, alam natin na may 95 na positive outside. Okay? So, it's not possible na 1,000 yung nag-positive outside. Otherwise, makikita mo sila sa loob ng ospital eh. Yung mga posibleng maano. So, in that way, I believe that maybe we're not missing a lot. However, yung contact tracing is napaka-importante pa rin eh. Kasi nga kung nahahayaan, dito nagkakalat. May I go to another segue ko lang, no?
Go ahead, Doc.
In November, when we had the surge last year, yung October, November, no? Nung natapos yung surge, ang around 1,000 to 2,000 cases per day ang na-accept natin na, sige, acceptable yan. Okay? Yung 1,000 to 2,000 cases. Nag-surge tayo ng April and we breached 15,000.
Yeah, 16,000.
Tapos nung bumaba, masaya na tayo. Pero hindi natin inisip na yung bumaba nasa 5,000 to 6,000 cases a day. Imagine niyo na hindi natin, hindi tayo, nag-relax na tayo with the 5,000 to 6,000. Di nagpugad doon. O kaya kaya nung nag-search ngayon, talagang sobrang taas kasi marami yung nag-nest. Kaya po yung aking panawagan is, halimbawa ngayon, nag-a-average tayo ng 20. Kailan natin sasabihin na okay na, bumababa na? Masaya ba tayo pag bumaba ng 15, 10,000? Ibig sabihin, nagpupugad na naman tayo ng katakot-takot until the next surge comes along? So, siguro, ang isa sa mga dapat tignan natin is even as nakokontrol natin or even bumaba na, hindi na tumataas, nag-plateau yan o bumababa ng konti, sana po wag tayong, for the local and national governments, wag po tayong masaya na bumaba. I don't even know if it's possible to say, let's target na hanggat hindi natin napupulyan ng 5,000 uli. Yung talagang babang-baba. Sana let's not relax.
But okay, can we try to answer that question na anong level tayo maaari, if at all, maaring, well, I don't want to say relax pero at what level should we be able to say na well, things are better or things are improving? Kasi yung sinabi yung example, 1,000 last year was normal for us, and by summer this year it was 5,000 was normal for us. What about this next evolution? What would or what shouldn't be normal for us?
I guess when the hospitals are not overwhelmed. Kasi dadami at dadami. Ang binabantayan natin sana yung bawat pasyente, hindi kailangan maghintay ng 3 araw para magkaroon ng kama. At yung maa-ICU, meron talagang kama sa ICU para sa kanila. I guess that could be one measure in seeing to it na what am I trying to say? Siguro yung level na kayang i-absorb ng hospitals natin all throughout the Philippines, yung posibleng maging severe o kaya critical na mga pasyente.
Doctor, iba-iba yung sinasabi ng mga opisyal, But seeing what you're seeing with Delta, you think the government should raise its target for herd immunity to 90% of the target population? Do you think that should be officially raised para magdagdag ng vaccination?
Ami, balikan natin yung herd immunity, no? Kasi from day one, hindi naman herd immunity ang goal ng pagbabakuna. Ang goal ng pagpapaguna is to prevent hospitalizations and deaths, regardless of ilan ng porsyento ng mga nabakunahan. So, even if we say 90 or 100%, 90 or 100% of what? We cannot say 90% of the entire population because at the moment, we're just talking about yung 18-year-olds and above. So, we're talking about X% of that. So, pangalawa, nakakatakot mag-set ng target kasi ng ganon, 90 or 100%, asa ng bakuna. Mercifully sa tulong ng media, sa tulong ninyo, nagawa ng paraan yung vaccine hesitancy. Ang issue ngayon is yung supply ng vaccine. Hindi ba?
Exactly.
So, and then, And then we're gonna say 90%. Kung ako yung mayor of governor, hibang ka ba? Asan ang vaccine? Bigyan mo ako ng vaccine kahit bukas, 100% ko yan. Or something like that. So we have to be a little bit careful. But on the other hand, that can also be a challenge to yung mga higher ups na kung nag-set sila ng ganong target, then just please see to it that the vaccines are available.
What about mass testing? Kasi wala nang sinasabi kundi vaccinate, wala nang supply. What about mass testing? Why don't we do mass testing? And then from there, di ba, we can decide who should quarantine, who should, di ba, parang at least targeted na siya.
Ganito. Kasi pwede rin yun, but I suppose we don't have the luxury of doing that.
Okay.
Unang-una, maganda yon if we, kung nasa nirvana tayo, I mean, if this was a perfect place, yung ganun, maganda yon. Kaya lang lubhan napakamahal. Pangalawa, ipupull out natin yung mga taong gagawa ng testing doon sa mga dapat nilang gawin na kasalukuyan silang nag-aasikaso ng mga may sakit. Pangatlo, tested or not, ganon, kung gusto talaga nating ingatan o mag-practice ng minimum public health standards, yun pa rin naman ang gagawin natin, di ba? So, it's good, Lucy. And I guess there's a way of testing statistically na hindi mo testingin na bawat isa, yung you get
Sampling.
Yes, sampling.
Oo.
A good
So,
sampling.
tignan natin kung magagawa
Di man
yan.
lang ba, yeah.
Oo.
Di man lang.
Oo. Pero, you know, even abroad, maybe I don't know anything, but I
That's what
haven't heard.
China did.
Oo.
Mass testing talaga
China,
sila. Yeah. Yeah.
Yun.
Korea
Oo.
rin, mass
Oo.
testing, di ba?
Oo.
Parang,
Tapos, after they have tested, kung ano yung,
Yes.
yung ano, di ba?
Ano yung result, yeah, di
Bakuna
ba?
ka. Bakuna
Yes,
ka, di ba?
yes.
Magbabakuna din naman tayo whether nag-test tayo o hindi.
Isolate
Okay.
muna sila after test.
Isolate,
Diba?
yeah.
So, yun.
Quarantine,
So, yung,
diba?
oo. So, balik ako do sa isolation and quarantine and yung ating minimum public health standards. Yung, at the end of the day, yun ang dapat natin i-practice. Kahit ano pang quarantine, kahit ano pang variation ng ano ang levels ang gawin ng government natin. At the end of the day, it's us as an individual na may it's up to us to take care of ourselves and fight this war. Parang kanya-kanya muna tayo. I need to survive on my own. Di muna kita pakikinggan. Basta kung ano yung dapat kong gawin ko. Siguro. And then of course, yun nga sinasabi natin. Kasi hindi naman bakuna lang talaga eh. It's not the magic bullet. And it's not the standalone armas that we have. Importante yung minimum public health standards. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to say also, no, that even if the situation looks gloomy, para sa akin mukhang the Philippines or the Filipinos must be doing something right. Kasi kung tutuusin, we could have had it worse. You know, yung sa dami ng mga nagpa-positive. I keep comparing kasi ito, alam ko, halimbawa, nung nag-surge sa Malaysia, they had 20,000 cases a day. Ang populasyon nila, 30 million. Tayo nagpapanik sa 20,000 cases. 100 million plus ang population natin. Tsaka sila, robust ang surveillance system nila. So, ba't dumami ng ganon? So, I guess, meron tayong protective factor. I don't know what is, but wag naman po tayo magpakakampante o meron tayong ginagawang tama. But there must be
Dok,
something
ano yung
right that
protective
we've been
factor?
doing.
Masanay tayo sa mikrobyo.
Hindi ba?
Natin,
Hindi. Or yung kahit nagre-reklamo tayo na ang daming pasaway, by and large, sumusunod naman yung sa mask and sa shield. Sa ibang bansa, walang shield eh. Tayo lang ang talagang, o sige na nga, mag-shield yung gano'n na hindi
face shield
nagre-reklamo. Hindi ba? So there must be something right that we are doing. Kaya nakakayanan natin.
Okay. Dr. Conky Lim Quizon of the Immunization Technical Advisory Group. Maraming salamat, Doc Conky, for joining us tonight.
Buti kayo, Doc. Merry Christmas na kayo.
Oo nga
dyan
eh.
sa bahay
Christmas na
niyo,
Christmas
ah.
ang background eh.
Three Kings na or
We need to take care of our mental health.
Okay,
Yan
there you
isang
go.
bagay na, di ba? O sige, so, Merry Christmas!
Doc Conky, maraming salamat po. Ingat po.
Thank you.
Dr.
We'll just go into a break, so please stay with us. Welcome back to the Chiefs here on One News, and now joining us is Attorney Chel Jokno, the chairman of the Free Legal Assistance Group. Good evening, Attorney Chel, and thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Attorney
Good
Chel.
evening to everyone watching.
Hi,
Thank you for
Sir,
having me.
of course, sir, we're bringing you in kasi FLAG, the Free Legal Assistance Group, has registered its opposition to Attorney Harry Roque's application with the International Law Commission, or the ILC. A bit of background there, sir. How significant ba itong ILC na ito? What exactly is it, and what does it do, and how big is it in the international scene?
Well, the International Law Commission is the body that really develops and tries to codify international law. So medyo bigatin yung body na yan. It's composed only of 34 members who are nominated by the states, but when they are appointed, or well, when they are elected actually, they don't represent their countries. Medyo, it's in the legal community, it's really looked up to as the body that of experts who are really well known and respected in the international law field. Sila nga yung nag-propose ng creation ng International Criminal Court,
ICC, yeah.
and other treaties that are now accepted as part of international law.
So who nominates the nominees? I mean, does every member nation get to nominate? And how does it get to meron bang finals yan, and then it's down to a short list,
list?
say 5, ganyan ba yan? How does it work?
Every member state of the United Nations can nominate. If I recall, I think up to 4 names. And then may botohan yan. It's done by election in the General Assembly. The term of the existing 34 members is going to end, I think, next year. So that's why they will be having an election probably around November of this year.
So
I see.
will opposition to a nomination carry weight? Kasi today, the Executive Committee of UP Diliman also opposed
Yes.
the nomination of spokesman Harry Roque. So, gaano kabigat ba yung weight ng mga ganyan? And are they solicited or kasi sa Supreme Court, sa judiciary natin, gano'n, di ba? You're asked for comment. Kayo ba, is there also a solicitation for comment on a nomination? Or okay lang yung ganyan na you're volunteering?
I'm not aware if there's any procedure for solicitation, but any organizations are free to express their opinion on persons who are nominated. Ultimately, it's going to be the member states' votes that will count. At doon na lang natin makikita kung makikinig sila at bukas sila doon sa mga opinion ng mga grupo. There are, in fact, I understand, over 100, maybe 200 organizations that have submitted some form of opposition to Attorney Roque's nomination.
And do you believe they will carry weight in the consideration of the nomination?
Yes, I think so. But of course, I cannot put myself in the shoes of the member states.
So, sir, in effect, the ambassadors to the UN are the ones who will be casting the vote on behalf of the countries. Yun ho ba? So you're looking at 196 or thereabouts, 198 ambassadors?
Yes, the representatives of the member states who sit in the General Assembly.
And you wrote to each one of them. Is this true? Because I read an account that you actually wrote individual letters to them.
I'm not sure if the other organizations have. The letter of the Free Legal Assistance Group was addressed to the International Law Commission, but I understand that we have or are in the process of furnishing as many of the member states as we can.
Ang sabi po
And-
ni, yeah.
Sige, go ahead.
Ang sabi po ni Harry Roque, wala daw, your objection daw is bereft of legal merit. And you're showing daw gross ignorance of what the ILC is all about. Ano po yung comment niyo ron?
Well, I'm not surprised that Harry would say something like that. That's expected of him, I suppose.
What about, well, I'm just speculating that he will probably present his credentials before, including the part of his profession of his career before he became presidential spokesperson. And you will agree that during that time, he was a human rights lawyer and he stood for, I guess, everything that the law community would probably also understand is a valid fight or advocacy. Do you think that in itself also will carry weight?
And let me
As
add to that.
opposed to what he is now.
Let me
Yeah.
add to Luci's question. I do remember long ago, Harry had always projected himself as an international law expert, even in
Yes.
UP with the International Law Center, among other things. So these things, paano po yun? Paano yung pagtitimbang sa mga ganitong mga bagay?
Well, we have to judge the person nominated by his entire record. And I think that includes his being spokesperson for this administration and the public statements he has made about the International Criminal Court and really more basically about the rule of law. Because we know how this administration has really twisted that concept of the rule of law in so many ways. They've weaponized the law. They have even justified extrajudicial killings, justified our withdrawal from the International Criminal Court, which actually Harry pushed for, Attorney Roque pushed for before he was part of this administration, but then turned around and then, as spokesperson, justified the withdrawal of the Philippines from from the Rome Statute, and in fact belittled the International Criminal Court as an instrument of accountability. For us, especially in the Free Legal Assistance Group, who are so concerned with human rights, we really are disappointed at the way this administration has looked at the issues of accountability and particularly pagdating sa extrajudicial killings.
So what do you think is the motive behind this nomination? And what do you surmise will be the benefit that this government will probably have in pushing for Harry Roque as a member of the ILC?
You know, I really can't say, and I wouldn't ever want to put myself in the mind of anyone in this administration, especially the president. It's beyond me to speculate why he was nominated.
Well, this administration is hoping for continuity in 2022. Medyo kakambyo po ako. Mag-politics tayo. Merong report that you are planning to run again in 2022. For what position have you decided already? Malapit na yung filing of certificates of candidacy.
Yes, I have decided that I will be running for the Senate.
Mhm. Ano po yung takeaway niyo from your previous attempt? Dahil natalo lahat ng 8 diretso noong 2019.
19.
Tama po yun. Actually, marami akong takeaways from that mid-year election. In the first place, newbie ako noon, it was quite an experience for me and a challenging journey. We did not have much resources. We did not have a ground crew that could really fight the ground war. We were at a tremendous disadvantage when it came to the air war, especially when you talk about television ads, which were and are so costly. But I've had 2 years to think about it and to plan how to make a better, how to wage a better campaign. And during this time, a lot has changed. The political landscape has changed. My
Yes.
team is, we have seen how important it is that to have a good message and to really take advantage of the social media platforms that are out there.
Sir,
Yeah,
so
I
how
was going to
different is
ask you about the political environment, especially in the context of President Duterte's huge popularity, which did not seem to be affected even by the pandemic. But, with recent, hearings in the Senate, especially on the family involvement of presidential aides and friends, do you think that the political environment is now more friendly toward opposition people like you?
Definitely. With the midterm election was very difficult, especially for local government officials. They naturally were aware that the president would remain in power for the next 3 years, and therefore it was very hard for us in the opposition to get their cooperation in many parts of the country. But now the president's term is ending, and there's no assurance that he or his people will win the next election. So the local government officials, the ground war, to state it that way, is much more open now. The landscape, as far as the what they call the air war, is also much more open now because people have really shifted to social media. What used to be only the domain of television and radio, marami na ngayon. We do almost everything online. We shop online, we learn online, we socialize online. And that has leveled the playing field to some extent. Of course, when
But
we
there's also a lot of trolling online. I mean, and you can imagine that they're not going to spare any effort to, politicians in general, and not just the administration, but you can imagine how much mudslinging there will be there.
The other
online.
thing that has changed as well is I think the more and more people are more willing to voice out their opinion about what's happening in the government. While it's true that in the surveys the president still enjoys substantial support, if you look at the other questions asked, which do not mention his name but which refer to the performance of his government, he doesn't get those numbers. And I think part of that is the fact that if you were an ordinary person and somebody knocks on your door whom you don't know and mentions the name of Duterte and asks your opinion about him, I'm not sure people would be forthright and straightforward in answering that question in the same way that they would answer a question that only refers to the management of his administration. I think we can gauge that those questions are really more sincere in terms of the responses.
Okay, sir, you are running for the Senate. Then I should ask you, who are you running with and who is your standard bearer going to be? Napag-desisyon na po ba kung sino ang standard bearer ninyo?
Sa ngayon po, Ed, ako ay isang independent. I have not joined or allied or affiliated with any particular political party. It may happen, but at this point, I am determined to remain an independent. Now, of course, I have publicly stated and I still support fully the initiative of Isang Bayan to come up with a unity slate. And I do hope that that will happen because tingin ko lalaki talaga ang tsansa ng opposition pag magsama-sama lahat and we can all unite behind a common slate.
Pero sir, meron ba kayong mga non-negotiables ayaw ninyong makasama sa isang slate? For example, magkaroon ng unity slate. Kasi sir ngayon, di ba, ang daming mga alternative slates na lumalabas, whether president, vice presidential or senatorial slates. Mga alternative slates, in other words, hindi admin slates. And samot-sari po ang kanilang nakaraan. meron ba kayong mga non-negotiables dun sa mga ano, sa mga tumatakbo na ayaw niyo makasama? So diretsahin ko na ayaw niyo makasama for any reason at all.
But there are certain principles that I will never compromise. Now, whether it's really in the realm of speculation what will happen pagdating dyan sa unity slate na yan. We'll have to cross that bridge when when we get there. But right now, I really think that it's the best for the opposition to stand behind a common slate.
It's the best, but you think it will be feasible? Kasi ngayon, there are persons already positioning themselves as the alternative, the middle ground. Di ba? May babanggitin ko na si Senator Lacson.
Yes.
Even si Manny Pacquiao, mukhang lumalayo na. I think that's irreconcilable differences na yun eh. Saan siya pupunta? I don't think he can be opposition. So gigitna din yan. So what do you think of this middle ground, it's another choice for the electorate. Now, what do you think of it?
Meron ka pang Isko Moreno, di ba? Meron ka pang possibly
Isko Moreno,
Dick Gordon, possibly
Actually,
Cayetano.
many of them are in the middle right now.
Yes.
Diba?
Yes.
I like the way you said the in the middle. Now, ang naalala ko kasi the closest I can think of in terms of the parallels in our history was before the snap elections in 1986, where it was also very difficult for the opposition to agree on a common candidate, but eventually they did. And tingin ko naman when push comes to shove at talagang nakikita naman ng lahat na we have to unite, it will happen.
Pero sir, that's why I was asking about non-negotiables. For example, would you be comfortable with Ping Lacson or Manny Pacquiao or Isko Moreno? Well, start off with Ping.
Well, I don't want to answer your question, Ed, exactly because I don't want to throw any wrenches in the initiative of Isang Bayan. I appreciate your question, but I cannot answer that at this point.
Okay, sir.
Okay, what platform will you be running on when you run? Is it still going to be human rights? Or are you going, yeah, go
The
ahead.
platform I ran on in 2019 was really justice. And I still carry that advocacy because it's so close to my heart. But because of the pandemic, we have more immediate matters that must be addressed by government. We have issues concerning the delivery of health services to our people. We have issues concerning the MSMEs who have been neglected by this administration. The MSMEs, the micro, small, and medium enterprises, actually employ 64% of our workforce. So pag nung sila ay natamaan and talagang grabe ang epekto sa kanila, that also affected unemployment and underemployment in the country. And people are really feeling that. So that must be addressed. The other issue I think that is connected there is the right to education. Kasi yung tinatamaan pag talagang nagkukulang ang ating kabataan pagdating sa pag-aaral, it's not their fault. It's really, to me, the fault of government. That's not just going to affect them. It's going to affect the entire country. We need to return to face-to-face schooling as soon as we can in a safe way. And that can only happen if we reach herd immunity, if we get 60-70% of the people vaccinated. Kaya ako, nababahala din ako na hanggang ngayon ay nasa 14% pa lang yata tayo, 14 or 15%. So it's not going to happen very soon, but it has to happen. Because the online learning is really not a viable solution to the problem. Marami talaga naiiwanan dahil sa online learning. We have to go back to face-to-face schooling as well.
So you think the pandemic response will be the defining issue in 2022? Kasi parang kahit ang administrasyon, yun na rin ang tinutunga, yung almost daily now, almost daily briefings now. They are defending their record at sinasabi nga ni Presidente, wala namang bansa na nakahanda dito sa pandemic na to eh. And then all the briefings, they are defending their record in responding to the pandemic. Ano po yung sagot nyo kapag ganon yung argument nila?
Alam nila na yung mga issues na nakababad sa sikmura ng taong bayan, talaga yun ang magiging issue bawat halalan. It's really those issues that hit the gut of the ordinary voter that will determine the outcome of the elections. Now it's going to be a big, that's up for grabs, how that will be projected. But one thing that is going for the opposition is the fact that more and more people, at least my understanding of it, are realizing that the management of the pandemic by this administration really was not up to par. It has not been up to par.
But of course, everybody's saying that really the biggest challenge to the next leader or leaders is really the economy. Because, I mean, even now we're already seeing the possibility of a collapse of the banking system with debts, the national debt growing to a level that we have not seen in like half a century, they're saying. So I think in terms of the economy, what do you see will be your legislative contribution, if ever, the very first legislative act you will undertake if you do get voted to
Well,
help the economy?
we have to do something about that, the debt, the foreign debt that this government has incurred. We have to make sure that it will be managed properly, because I'm not sure, I don't think it's being managed properly under this administration. Kailangan mabuklat yan at makita talaga natin kung paano babayaran natin ang utang na yan. And if we don't do anything about it, it will affect generations of Filipinos, and that's just totally unacceptable. Yun yung isa. The other issue there has to do with the MSMEs and unemployment and underemployment, because we are really reeling from that. And I must say that in terms of youth unemployment, the data I've seen we have a triple, it's 3 times harder for young Filipinos to get employed than it is for ordinary Filipinos of older age. Sila yung natamaan because so many of them are employed in service-related businesses, which weren't able to operate and which aren't still able to operate like before under the pandemic because of all the lockdowns. So imagine that, where you have young Filipinos who are looking for work, ready to work, they're employable, but they can't find any jobs. Ano mangyayari sa atin yan? Unang-una, nagka-problema na nga sa pag-aaral. It has brought us back a number of years, what has happened in the last 2 years. Tapos pag makapag-graduate ay hindi naman sila makakapagtrabaho, they won't be productive in our society. That cannot happen. Kailangan matugunan ng pansin ng ating pamahalaan yan.
What do you think will be other important issues in the elections? Halimbawa, human rights. Yung mga killings, will they still be important to voters?
Well, I am really deeply concerned about the extrajudicial killings. I really cannot say how much that will be a factor to the ordinary voter. The other issue I think that will probably be raised is the issue of corruption. Ayun talagang mas malapit sa botante yon. Dahil pera ng bayan yan, nasa gitna tayo ng isang pandemya, tapos ganun-ganun pala ang gamit niya. So yun pa, tingin ko, will be a very big issue.
Tsaka
What about
dikit-dikit yun eh.
Prison
Dikit-dikit
order?
yun.
Diyan nanalo si Presidente Duterte noong 2016. Malakas siya sa prison order. You think it will still be a big issue in 2022?
I don't think so. Ang isa rin issue na para sa akin mahalaga yung paano ba ang pagtatrato ng ating pamahalaan sa mga quarantine violators, because more than 500,000, by the count of the Philippine National Police, more than 500,000 Filipinos have been arrested and jailed for simple quarantine violations. Ako mismo, ang tingin ko dyan, ang dapat gawin ng pamahalaan ay bigyan sila ng parusa ng community service. They should not be treated as criminals. Yes, it's true, you violate quarantine rules, there has to be a penalty. Pero hindi naman dapat ang trato sa kanila ay criminal. We monitored one case, and I understand that there are many other cases like this where the head of the family left his house. He needed to buy food for his children. Hindi niya namalayan na curfew na pala. Nahuli siya. He was treated because of the ordinance, treated like it was a crime. It took him 37 days to get out and return to his family. Ay, hindi naman makatao yan at hindi makatarungan yan. Quarantine violation yun. We have to stop doing that because ordinary people, hindi naman sila lalabas ng bahay sa gabi kung hindi naman kailangan. Who is gonna go out at night to have a good time when we're in the middle of a pandemic and you can get COVID-19? That doesn't happen. People go out of the house, especially ordinary Filipinos, only when they really have to, at night especially.
Okay. Attorney Chel Jokno, Chairman of the Free Legal Assistance Group. Attorney Chel, maraming salamat po for joining us tonight. At ingat po.
Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Chair.
Thank you and good evening to all of you.
Good evening, sir. And that'll be all for this. Before we go, for those that would want to extend their help to residents affected by Typhoons Jolina and Kiko, you may donate to the Alagang Kapatid Foundation through any of the bank accounts flashed on your screen. And that'll be all for this Tuesday edition of The Chiefs. We hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. A reminder as well to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Edwin Gao.
I'm Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star.
And I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and we are One News.